Hi, my name is Ashley and this is my first tutorial over on my new channel, Thrashley Makes. Today I just wanted to walk you through how I made these fancy schmancy pauldrons right here for a Ed, Edd n Eddy meets Mad Max Canker Sisters costume. And the sun's out. No sun all day. Now you're gonna play me like that. Okay. Shade. So my hope here today is that I can successfully walk you through how to make something along these lines. For the first segment of this project, I used chipboard from Home Depot, craft foam, rubber cement, Mod Podge hard coat, a nifty circle cutter tool by Martha Stewart, tape, scissors, and a heat gun. This is the shape that I used to create my pauldron. I can do another video on how I got that shape, but this is just a good reference. So the point of this chipboard is to create stability because I have a hard time using craft foam just on its own. What I'm doing here is I am adding rubber cement on both sides and allowing it time to get tacky before fixing the two together. Now comes the hard part. What I've done is I've laid a large piece of craft foam over the top of my pauldron, and I'm cutting out jagged holes to fit the spikes through. I'm using the heat gun to constantly heat and warp the large piece of craft foam so I can stretch it over the top of the spikes. If I could go back and do one thing over again, it would be to use more glue underneath during this stage. So naturally, I forgot to add that I was using the border strips from some floor mats in my project as well. They are also foam. You could also make these out of craft foam. I just liked that they were a lot thicker than the craft foam that I was using, and they had a very nice texture to them. Once you're happy with how the outside of your pauldron looks, go ahead and coat the entire thing in Mod Podge or some other sort of glue sealant so that you'll add some rigidity to your piece, and also it's easier to paint on and it really helps protect your foam. Now we're on to the second part of this project. I did not list the things I used here. What I've got is some regular, just acrylic paint. I'm coating the whole thing in my base color, which is gray. I want the whole thing to look like old cement, you know, just nasty, grime-coated metal. So my base coat is gray. This part was really fun because I have zero patience. The paint was still wet when I pulled out my Dremel and decided to drill little tiny rivet-looking things into the side of it, so I splattered gray paint everywhere. The Dremel that I use is a great tool for adding little cuts and all kinds of fun little texture things to it, but you do not have to have one. You can just use an X-Acto knife or something like that. I also airbrush, so I'm using my airbrush to create a lot of texture using white paint. You see that little yellow thing? I am just splattering my paint using that. You could also just take a brush and splatter your paint that way as well. Next thing is I'm going in with black to really accentuate any sort of cuts or grooves, any sort of dark part. I really want to accentuate that. So I'm going in with the black around all the edges. I want this to look kind of cartoony. Now I'm going in and spraying my spikes black because black is a better base for silver. So I'm painting silver on top of my black spikes, just using a brush. Since I want this thing to look real gnarly, I am adding in rust dripping off of it, coming out from all those little cracks and grooves. I made up a red color, and I'm just having it drip down, using one of these texture stencils to make sure that I get some really good looking rust. I really want my rivets to stand out, so I'm painting those white, along with any other parts I think need highlighting, which includes the outside of tears and cracks in my fake metal. Normally I would line something like this with felt, but I had this pair of pants that no longer fit because I can't stop eating. And so I decided to use that to connect and line my two pauldrons together, because I kinda need them to stay on my body. So I used the button on the front of the pants to actually make a clasp, so that way I didn't have to make one myself. It came with the pants. I did thread some leather cord through those clasps just to make it stay on better, but that's not enough to hold it, so I also used glue. The rubber cement, it turns out, did not work. Super glue did work, but I had to go through an absolute ton of it. Now I'm taking the rest of the pants and I'm cutting their shapes so that way they will line the inside of my pauldron. I went ahead and I decided to use a wire brush and a lighter and really just make those things nasty. I'm also using a railroad tie because I happen to have a bunch of railroad ties. This is that beautiful moment when I learned that the rubber cement was really not gonna work as well as I had hoped. I think that I will try and use a much different glue in the future, because it was just not holding the way I wanted it to. Here I didn't like how long some of the fabric was, so I doubled it over on itself and just tried to glue that back as well. I've actually got tape on the inside of there right now, because rubber cement does not hold fabric, which I should have known. I hope that some of you found this tutorial helpful. This is my very first one, so if you don't mind leaving any feedback in the comments below, that would be great. And if you also want to see future tutorials, go ahead and click subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Why can't I get this fucking thing to stand up?